Hey, you're listening to the Start Something podcast, where we take you behind the scenes of the founder journey, breaking down what it takes and how it can change your life. My name is Bailey.
And my name is Shruti, and today we're going to talk to you all things about fundraising.
Everyone's favorite topic and experience.
Yeah.
My team always says you can't spell fundraising without fun.
Oh God.
That's their way of like being emotional support to me.
Let's go, Bailey. Let's go.
Come on. Go team.
Before we jump into all things fundraising, can we share a little bit about why someone fundraises and just the concept of fundraising? And then I would love to break down your experience about fundraising.
Absolutely. So as you know very well, there are multiple ways that we can finance a business. So finance in terms of paying our salaries, paying the rent for an office if we need to have one, paying for the website and the inventory if we sell a product, etc. There's always things that we need to pay for around our companies, and there are a lot of sneaky expenses that show up as well. And being able to fund those things early on is maybe not something you can do in the first few days, weeks, months, maybe even years in my case of running a company, but figuring out where that funding source is going to come from is absolutely essential. So I know for you, you bootstrapped. So that means you worked at Microsoft, you put the money that you made into a personal fund that you were using for the different company expenses that you were accruing as an entrepreneur.
Exactly.
But for me, I was pursuing a venture-backed model, which means I wanted to go to investors, venture capitalists, to raise money to hire the team that I needed to develop the product that we now sell today. And so right out of the gate, I knew that I wanted to take this business in that direction. I wanted to be a venture-backed company, and I asked a lot of questions at the very beginning, in the early stages, about if I even wanted to go in that like venture capital direction, because I could have also started Perimeter as a nonprofit, and that was something I really considered. And that would have meant that I was going to donors and trying to raise money that way that I could then use to invest in the business. But the reason I decided to go the more corporate or the C Corp route and the venture-backed route is because from my research, the public safety companies that were having the biggest impact that I thought we were most similar to were businesses that were pursuing that kind of like venture-backed avenue. And so I knew really early on that is the direction that I wanted to go, which meant that I had to fundraise.
Yeah. So let's dive into that.
Yes. So fundraising for me started while I was still a student at UC Berkeley, and we started the company about a semester and a half before I graduated. Something that really helped us get started was applying to an accelerator and eventually getting into an accelerator, although we did not get into that accelerator the first time we applied.
That's a good note, honestly.
Yeah, so we applied the semester before my final semester, and we got rejected. We were very disappointed. But we decided that we'd use our last semester in school to keep working on the business, interview potential customers, start working on the prototype for the product, and then reapply to the same accelerator. And the reason we wanted to do one of these business accelerators/incubators is because for someone who's a first-time founder, those are a really good place and resource that can help answer questions about what steps you have to take in order to be a successful business.
Yeah.
And so there are so many entrepreneurs who have figured out their businesses with just, books or Google or experimentation, which is really how you learn. But we were really fortunate to be able to join an accelerator and have advisors and resources there that could really help us make decisions about where to go. And so that accelerator is actually the first check that we received. And so that accelerator helped us, figure out, okay, how are we going to build this business? What is it going to look like? And then, of course, how are we going to fundraise? And my fundraising journey was pretty rocky, honestly, for the first year and a half, because as soon as I went out to fundraise, about 3 weeks later, COVID happened.
Oh my God.
And so we had received a few early checks before COVID, which was such a miracle because even though it was only like $30,000, it was enough for us. That actually seemed like a lot of money to me back then. I should be careful. But to pay the salaries of 5-person team, that was very, very little. And so because COVID happened and all of our investors ghosted us, the actual journey of getting people to talk to us and listen to our pitches on Zoom was really challenging. It was challenging to bring people to the table, but even when we got them to the table, almost no one invested.
Wow.
And in the period of about a year and a half, I was rejected by at least 300 investors. I was spending almost every day on Zoom pitching my heart out to all these investors, asking for people to invest in Perimeter.
How do you stay motivated during something like that? I feel like most people will go through 5 or 10 pitches and be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't build this idea. You know, how did you stick through that?
It was really hard. And the way that I stayed motivated is because I care about the problem that we're solving so deeply. Honestly, I don't know how founders keep going when they don't care about the problem really deeply, because to be rejected every single day for an idea for almost a year and a half is really, really hard. And I definitely experienced a lot of anxiety and stress and overwhelm and, just a lot of like mental health challenges during that time, because I knew that Perimeter needed to exist. I knew that we needed better technologies for public safety and evacuation management. And really, we needed better tools to respond to the types of disasters that we were seeing in this day and age. I mean, the number of fires and, the frequency and severity of these disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, it's just increasing every year. And so I knew we needed something better. And that really kept me going, because I knew it needed to exist, and I knew that not everyone was familiar with the problem, both in terms of the disasters themselves, but also in terms of the lack of technology that was being used in response.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, in many ways, I was perfectly positioned to understand the problems faced by many groups of people simultaneously. And also I had the resources and connections through UC Berkeley, being in Silicon Valley, to actually move in the direction of building a solution. And so, to answer your question, the thing that kept me going when it got really hard was caring so deeply about the problem that we were solving.
That's an important note, right? Because I find that a lot of times founders or people who want to be founders have an image of the title founder, and that's what they want. They don't even know what problem they want to build. They want to build anything that's in front of them just to say that they're a founder. But to your point, how do you keep that going? Because being a founder is not a 1 year or a 6 month or a 2-day type thing. It's a journey, and you've been on it for quite some time, right? So definitely important note.
Absolutely. And I think that's why finding something that you really care about can be an emotional support when you're really struggling.
Yeah.
And so investing in finding those problems and those challenges, being on the lookout for things that you can solve that really matter to you, that really resonate deeply for you personally, can mean so much when you're going through rejection after rejection, because there's always going to be a lot of rejection when you're starting a company, because you're in the business of sales in some way, and until you hire a great team who can take that off your plate, it's very much on your plate.
Yeah.
And so even though I was rejected by so many investors, I kept going, but the most important thing that helped me start to be successful was in some ways burning myself out a little bit. I got to this point with my fundraising journey. I was actually getting really sick, and I'm not saying that this is like the path that people should take, but I really was flattened in some ways. And it wasn't until I was actually in the ER for ovarian torsion that I realized this isn't working. Like, my life, the way that I'm living, the way that I'm operating this business, the way that I'm trying to fundraise, like, nothing is working, and it's not worth it to compromise my health so extremely if that's the only option for me. I have to figure out a way. If I want to build this company, I have to figure out how to build it while also maintaining my health. And I need to go into it with a mindset that says, I can actually be successful and we can actually do this. And so I think when I ended up in the ER a couple times actually, I finally realized something has to be different. And when I reached that realization that something has to be different, I finally asked for help. This is something I always share and recommend early on. Like, don't wait to ask for help. Like,
don't go to the ER, guys.
Yeah.
That's not the takeaway.
Unless you need to go to the ER, in which case, please go to the ER. But one of the reasons why I'm so excited that we're having these conversations with female founders is because I learned a lot of things the hard way that I hope my experience can help other people not learn those lessons the hard way. And so what I learned when I was at the ER was, I need help. I need to ask for help. I need advice. And I'm so grateful that I had a female founder friend named Madison who said, okay, we're going to work on your pitch. And I started pitching, and about 10 seconds into my pitch, she stopped me. And she was like, that is never going to work. You are never going to raise any money acting like that. And I'm like, acting like what? What are you talking about?
You're like, I'm not acting.
Totally. I'm like, this is honest.
Yeah.
And this is the best I've got.
Yeah.
And she said, you are acting like investors are doing you a favor by listening to your pitch. They're not doing you a favor. The reason an investor is hearing your pitch is because they're trying to find out if you and your company are going to be one of the big winners. And they want to invest in those big winners.
Yeah.
So if they think that you might be like a semi-successful business, they're not interested. If they think you're not going to be successful, of course, not interested. So they're looking for the founders that are going to take this business to the moon.
And sorry to quickly just
Please.
jump in, but from their lens, they're listening to, sometimes founders forget they're listening to hundreds of pitches a week.
Absolutely.
Right? So you have to figure out how to stand out and make sure at the end of their week of listening to that many, you're at the top of their list.
Absolutely. And what I realized as Madison was giving me this feedback is, in many ways, I was treating these investors like they were doing me a favor, because I was so passionate about the problem that we were solving that in many ways I forgot to talk about things like the market opportunity and the nuts and bolts that investors are really looking for, the reason that they're looking to invest in the first place.
Yeah.
I used to have investors tell me that, we don't invest in nonprofits. And I was like, well, we're not a nonprofit. But the truth is, I was talking about the company and the problem and the market as if there wasn't really a business opportunity, because I was hyper fixated on the problem that we were solving as opposed to the opportunity that our business created. And so it wasn't until I had a shift in my mindset where I realized these investors aren't doing me a favor. They're looking for great, great founders. And if I believe that I am or that I can be a great founder, then this investor would be lucky to listen to my pitch. It's kind of similar to dating.
Yeah.
Where if you go on a date with someone and you're feeling insecure and you're like, oh my gosh, what does this person think about me? Then you're not in a position to ask yourself questions about what I think about them.
Yeah.
But if we go into an environment like a date where we're believing I am already enough, I don't need this date to go well, I am totally a catch, I'm going to use this conversation, this coffee, to figure out how I feel about this person, not wonder and feel anxious about what this person thinks about me. I know it can be easier said than done, but when you walk into a date with that kind of energy, you are so much more yourself.
Yes.
You feel so much more confident, and you feel a lot less attached to the outcome. And I think that detachment in some ways, and that like trust in ourselves, that like, oh, we're good no matter how this goes, people can sense it, they can feel it.
Exactly.
They might not be able to point to it, but they know that you are good regardless of this outcome, that your confidence is not going to be shaken by this.
Exactly. Whether it's on Zoom or in person, I'm a strong believer in energies, right? And that's really what you're getting at. You want to give off the energy that you don't need them and that they need you almost in a sense. And that's what you've learned from her, right? And the other thing that I think was really good that you pointed out is that you are kind of like lost in this bubble, right? You're so passionate about this problem. Kind of talking to another female founder who doesn't have that similar lens or context can take you a step back out and just say, hey, you're doing a really big thing. Here are like XYZ areas where you can improve your pitch. I think that's really like trusting another female founder. It could be a female founder. It could be anyone who's close to you who isn't as close to the problem, because an investor isn't as close to the problem as you are. And it's your job to tell the story of what you're doing in a consumable way.
Absolutely. And I think having someone come alongside you who can be honest,
Yes,
but who also understands what your experience is like. I had gotten lots of feedback from men about my pitch, and I heard the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
Lots of people will give you opinions about your pitch deck, the presentation that you're using, etc. And sometimes they'll give you contradictory opinions.
Exactly.
And so when I would go to men and ask for feedback, they'd say, oh, your slide's in the wrong place, or this slide doesn't have this number on it, or, switch these slides around, start with the team, end with the team. Like, people said contradictory opinions all day long. It wasn't until I had a female founder listen to my pitch and say, your confidence, your energy, the revolution that you're starting, none of that is coming through. None of it is effective. And she is a young, blonde, short woman like me, and I knew that if she could fundraise successfully, so could I.
Yeah.
And so getting her feedback, I decided, man, I'm already at my breaking point. Something has to change. I'm gonna go a different direction. My pitch deck didn't change. Many of the words of my pitch didn't change, but my mindset really did, because I was ready for something to be different. And when I went into my pitches, I no longer treated these investors like, oh, thanks so much for taking the time. That is not the direction that I went. And I'm all for being polite and being, conscientious. But at a point, if we signal that like, oh, I'm just, I'm really small and I'm just so grateful that you'd take time out of your busy schedule. It's my busy schedule that we have to be taking into account. When you take that energy into an investor meeting, people are like, whoa, this person is moving.
Yes.
And when an investor sees you as a rocket ship that's going in a direction, oftentimes, even if they don't have all of the answers, they want to get on board.
Exactly.
And importantly, when they see someone who brings that level of confidence, they also know this person is not going to be shaked by all of the challenges that we enter as founders. We have to walk through so many brick walls to get to wherever we're going, and investors need to know that we have what it takes to overcome those challenges. And so you're not just telling them about your business when you're pitching, you're showing them that you have what it takes to be on this journey in the first place.
Yeah.
And as soon as I went into the conversations with that mindset and with that affect, every single investor pitch after turned into an investment in Perimeter.
That's amazing.
Thank you. I think there was a lot of timing involved as well, but I think there is something to be said for the fact that we went from 300 rejections to basically 10 yeses in a row that closed our $1.5 million pre-seed round.
That's amazing.
And we've raised now 4.5 more on top of that first 1.5 to get our product Perimeter into the hands of public safety agencies all over the United States to help them respond to disasters, help them get information out. And that reality would never have stood a chance of seeing the light of day if I hadn't had someone come in and say, this isn't working. And my hope is that my story and my experience and the fact that I got really sick and ended up in the ER is able to be something that helps other women not go through those same challenges.
Yeah.
Because if we can help teach what confidence looks like, how to bring that energy, how to bring that assuredness into a pitch, then maybe there are female founders out there who won't have to end up in the ER, who won't have to spend a year and a half not getting paid, pitching every day, moving back in with their parents. My co-founder and I both moved back in with our parents during the early days of Perimeter because we couldn't pay ourselves anything. We couldn't pay our rent. And so I hope that my story can help other women not only be successful as fundraisers, but also take care of themselves and not end up in some of the really challenging health circumstances that I've had to go through.
Yeah, and with that, I'm also keeping tabs on time, of course, you know me. So how would we recommend women to get started today? Your story is powerful, and I think encouraging for a lot of our listeners out there. How do you encourage them to get started today if they wanted to get started with fundraising?
Absolutely. So the first thing that I would say is start working on your mindset now. And the way that we work on our mindset could be through journaling. That's a really big one. It could be through meditation, mindfulness practices, etc. It can also be through therapy or coaching. But basically, we want to be intentional about finding and developing the most confident, authentic version of ourselves. And so you don't have to pay a coach or a therapist to do that for you, but just writing about, who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? What energy do I want investors or anyone that I'm presenting to? What experience do I want them to have? If they could only label me as having one word, if they just used one word to describe me as I left that pitch, what word would I want it to be? And once you know what that word is, we have to ask ourselves, okay, how can I ensure in the way that I show up and the things that I say that that is the experience that they are going to have? Because we have to go in with our eye on the prize. We have to go in intentionally knowing what kind of environment you want to create, how people experience you, etc. And so starting to unpack that in writing is so powerful. That played such a big role, I think, in the transformation that I experienced about fundraising very quickly. I think one of the reasons why I integrated Madison's feedback so quickly is because I was writing like a mad woman. Like I was really trying to get to the bottom of what was holding me back. And we can do that in writing. We can do that in therapy. We can do that with great coaching or mentorship. And so that's the first thing I would do. Even if you've never pitched, start unpacking your limiting beliefs now. And then start developing that version of yourself that is the most confident, the most authoritative in some ways, the most clear. The person who knows where they're going, what they're working on, why it matters, and why someone would be lucky to be on board with that vision.
Because someone is lucky to be on that vision.
Absolutely. And so I would start there. And the other thing is, if you are starting a business and you are about to start fundraising and you're, not sure how to navigate the world of being a female founder, you should reach out to us. Like we would love to, give you feedback and support you in the process. And so to anyone who's listening and knows that this is something that they want to work at, please find us on social media at Start Something Podcast. You can find us personally.
You can find us on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Yes.
Bailey Farron, Shruti Goli. Find us online, but message us on the Start Something Podcast Instagram. And we will get back to you. We want to see you succeed. We want to support your success, and we believe in you. So that's what I would say.
I love that. Perfect note to end on. Thank you all so much for another amazing episode of Start Something. And thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Absolutely.
All right.
I hope this helps someone not end up in the ER. And don't be like me.
Don't. But also be exactly like Bailey. That was very sarcastic.
But no, I really hope that this can help. And if you have any questions, seriously, do not hesitate to reach out. We would love to hear from you. Okay, see you in the next episode. Bye.